Good evening. Welcome everybody to the Ashland Parks and Recreation Commission Board of Commissioners January 4th, 2023 study session. And so I call the meeting to order, and I don't believe there's any public forum speakers. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Well, we're just going to move right into our next order of business, which is the Oak Knoll RFP process, which I just want to caution everybody at this point, we are, this is just a very preliminary draft, and we're going to move from here. So Rachel Dials, I believe, is going to introduce this topic. So go ahead, Rachel.
Let me unmute myself. Sorry about that. And let me share my screen. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna get. Okay.
Hey, Rachel, one
Yeah.
second. Rick, before we get started, Commissioner Lott, before we get started, could we acknowledge Commissioner Adams?
Well, I didn't see he was there. I'm sorry.
We just saw him just now, so, but we haven't started yet, so if that's okay.
All right. Yes, I want to welcome our new commissioner, Justin Adams, who joined us. He was elected in November, and he filled the position that formerly filled by Julian Bill. And I want to say that you've got big shoes to fill, but from everything I've read, you are more than capable of doing that. And I'm excited to have you as part of our team, and I want to extend a very hearty welcome.
Thank you so much, Rick. I am thrilled to be here.
Okay, let's go back to where we were, which was just starting the presentation on the draft RFP for the Oak Knoll Golf Course.
One second. Now I have to get back to where I was. Okay. All right. Can everybody see that now? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. And the commission asked staff to look into a process to seek proposals for the Oak Knoll Golf Course, for managing the operations of the Oak Knoll Golf Course. Tonight I'm here to give you some information, and we're looking for some direction on some of the proposed criteria that we as staff have been doing some research on. So it's just kind of a starting point. This is a draft process tonight, so we are looking for input from commissioners in order to potentially move this forward. So let's see. Why isn't this moving? Sorry, one second. My slides aren't moving. Sorry. One second, guys. Sorry. How do I move this? It's not moving. The advanced slide thing is not working on my.
Is your key, try just using the arrows on your keyboard.
That's what I am using.
Oh, okay. I just go off of share screen and then start it over.
Okay. Okay. So now okay. So basically, the first part of the The memo talks about the criteria for the RFP, and that includes, so there's 6 different criteria that we're looking at, proposed criteria, continuity of current operations. That proposal must prioritize the preservation of the current golf course and ensure that golfing at Oak Knoll remains attractive, challenging, and accessible and affordable to the community. Improving the financial stability and sustainability is the second criteria. And that is proposing a financial proposal arrangement that is beneficial for both the partner entity as well as APRC, with consideration for the primary goal of preserving the Oak Knoll Golf Course as a community golf course and enhancing ancillary offerings to support the financial sustainability of Oak Knoll. The third criteria that we're looking at is generating social and economic activity, proposing a plan for improving Oak Knoll Golf Course both socially and economically as a destination for recreational activities and social activities. The fourth criteria we're looking at is maintenance and protecting the environment. The proposer is expected to manage Oak Knoll Golf Course and all of its operations consistent with modern management trends in the golf industry. We desire to offer the public a challenging playing experience and conditions that's with carefully manicured greens and other golf services that may be sought by our community. The fifth criteria is familiarization with Oak Knoll Golf Course and the Ashland community. In addition to showing expertise within the elements of running a successful golf course, the proposer should demonstrate an understanding of the Ashland community and the Oak Knoll Golf Course neighborhood. And the final criteria is creativity and ability to execute the proposal. They need to show creativity. The proposer needs to show creativity in the exercise of programs and management practices to achieve the goals of this RFP and demonstrate ability to propose, to execute operational, social, business, and environmental plans being proposed. The current timeline and selection process, we're looking at wanting to leave the RFP itself open for at least a month, maybe longer. And once the RFP closes, we would need a panel from both commissioners as well as staff that would score the proposals based on the point system, and then potentially do an interview process after that. So that's what I have right now. Sorry, I had this whole presentation planned for you and my PowerPoint's not working. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions. But again, most of the information is in the memo that you received earlier this week.
You're muted, Rick.
Thank you. I just want to point out that you also sent today a draft RFP, which we all received.
Correct.
Yes.
So if I can follow up just on the staff report side, if I can just follow up on the end there. So one of the main goals is to preserve Oak Knoll Golf Course as a community golf course in this RFP. And that's something that we heard from the commissioners just recently after some comments from the community. So I wanted to just point that out and just make more emphasis on that, just to make sure it's clear that this RFP is designed to prioritize proposals that maintain the golf course as a community golf course. And going through this process, looking at it from that lens first, I think is appropriate to see if we can do something to preserve this historic course. I hope I hope we do end up getting multiple responders and we get to explore the options with them. Speaking of options, though, there's a lot of different ways that a proposer could propose to meet these criteria. There is, in the past, there's been contracts with proposers or contractors for management of just the business side, and Parks has managed the maintenance side. But what we're looking for is for proposers to come in and make a proposal based on their strengths and what they think is best for the golf course. So we're leaving it open to be I guess specific to the strengths and the strengths of the proposer, and if somebody can come in and do the entire operation, we'd love to hear what their proposal is versus somebody who's looking at the business side versus any other potential scenario that they could think of. So we're excited to get this out there, and we think that with the criteria we've come up with, I think we've met the commissioner's goals, but we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say tonight.
Commissioner Eldridge.
Thanks. The draft RFP, I think it's great. It has a lot of detail in there, and I'm not an expert in drawing up these RFPs, but it hits a lot of, checks a lot of the boxes that I was looking for. I especially really like that there's specific mention of how the proposer will work to establish rates and work with APRC to make sure that it's affordable and accessible by the community. My main questions are related to the environmental sustainability. I see that it uses this phrase consistent with modern management trends in the golf industry. And I don't really know what that means. I know the golf industry doesn't always necessarily, and this might not be true of reality anymore, but I associate it with not having the greatest record for environmental sustainability. So I would like to see a little more specificity on that because it seems a little vague. There's no, there's allusions to irrigation, but of course, irrigation and water is a huge concern with Oak Knoll. And the RFP, the full draft, talks about the proposer must address methodology and proposal for turf operations, landscaping, those sorts of things. But I guess I would like to see is it possible to have some sort of specific water plan or like specifically how the proposer would deal with that? I would like to know where that would come from and what the water budget projected might be. So I'd love to explore sort of that part of it if we could develop that further. The second thing is just a question. I see that the contract is for a 5-year renewable contract. And again, my curiosity is that a short period of time for someone to invest a ton of money into trying to rehab and build sort of, I wonder if the 5-year, is that standard? Is that period of time, would that make it less appealing to someone who would want to invest in this? Or just wanted to discuss that briefly, the period of the contract length.
I guess what I would say in some of the research that I've done is that, you know, if we're trying to be open, I think the 5 years is obviously negotiable. And I think that if someone's going to invest their business or their money into Oak Knoll Golf Course, I think that we need to be open to, you know, longer lengths of time. I mean, one of the places that when we had the speaker last time, I think it was Mr. DeBoer, he mentioned Chardonnay Golf Club that's down in Napa, and they actually do a 5-year plan, renewable for up to, I think it's like 35 years or something. So, yeah. I mean, I think with anything there's options. We don't have to necessarily we don't have to have something concrete put into the RFP right now. We can leave it pretty open.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I agree with the idea, that if someone's going to invest capital into the golf course, or if we are going to invest capital in the golf course, we want to know that we have a program that's going to last for the duration of the value of the improvements. So I think Rachel's right. I think we could leave that open and not make it a criteria as far as the proposal, and just leave it open so that we can be creative with whoever comes in as the best proposer, and we'll negotiate that with them.
Yeah, as long as there was some sort of systematic agreed upon checkpoints where APRC can step in or provide kind of guidance and if necessary, requirements.
Yeah.
Can I just quickly mention one more thing? I just want to make sure that any of the public that's watching, that the draft RFP is available on the actual agenda and minutes page for this meeting on our website. So if anybody wants to follow along, I just wanted to make sure that I said that.
Commissioner Lewis and then Commissioner Bachman.
I agree with a lot of what Commissioner Aldrich says, and I was excited about the proposal because it's 100% behind keeping a golf course in Ashland. And when we were looking for a golf course manager and Patrick was selected, he had an amazing business plan, and if it touched on becoming a Autobahn course, which we're pretty close to, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, we want to follow up on a lot of the stuff that Patrick fleshed out for us. So, you know, a public-private proposal, I'm 100% behind it. It's kind of what it needs, I think, is a combination between public and private. And we own the property, and somebody can run a golf course. And I think some of the issues that might come up is some of the other golf courses use hired maintenance help that isn't required to have a living wage and all that. And I think probably the city would have that requirement. Some of these tend to be in the way of running a golf course that has positive cash flow. But I think Patrick is the guy we would want to talk to at some point and run some of this by him. And I've been involved in long-term leases, and yeah, once you start investing money, you want to make sure that you do have the ability to continue for a considerable length of time, actually, that you can, as long as everybody's happy with how it's going, and you want to occasionally look at and discuss how it's going, but then the assumption is that the person who is running it will have ability to continue running it. And so I say this proposal is a lot of what I was hoping for, and I'm not that privy to all the legalities of it, but it's probably a fairly complicated package when it all gets said and done. So I'm really hopeful that we would move forward with this and see who's interested in running a golf course.
I do want to answer one more question. I just want to clarify where the water comes from for the Oak Knoll Golf Course. So we are on city water, and in the summertime, when we can use TID, we do use TID. So currently that's our watering system.
Well, can I clarify?
Well, I guess let me try to do that. The course is water with TID. There is a backup for using city water, but it's expensive, and it's not something that we typically do. And we probably no one's gonna be able to do that in the future, because it's whether it's a private entity or a nonprofit or us running the golf course. Commissioner Bachman, and then Commissioner.
Thank you. A couple of points to the last point on water. I think we voted last summer to not use potable water unless there are exceptions. So that, I believe that policy is still in place.
Correct.
The other point I wanted to get to was this. I support this partnering concept completely. And the reason for that is to spread the business risk. And I want to be sure that as we work with the RFP process and get into contractual negotiations, that clearly we are leasing land to a business entity that's going to run a golf course, and that they're absorbing the business risk of running a golf course, and that we don't somehow end up on the hook for something like they walk and we have unpaid wages or something. So I understand that we're a long way from that, but I think we have to protect, we have fiduciary responsibility to protect our parks budget from any possibility that we would have a big surprise down the road. So my thinking about this is we are leasing land that we would like somebody to operate a business. We approve the business, we let them run it, and they take the business risk. That's kind of where what I would like to see the final contract be very specific about. So far, that's implicit in here, but we're not talking about the business part too much yet. Thank you.
Commissioner Lewis.
And in a public-private enterprise, I think we want to help facilitate some of the issues that we've just been discussing, because we had some discussion on wells and whether that's possible or not. And also our budget didn't allow us to use Reeder Reservoir water, but it's not that it wasn't available. We just didn't have the money for it. So, you know, I guess the hope is maybe their business plan understands that there might be some of these issues coming up, and if we can work with them and try to work through some of these issues, I think that would, as long as they know that it's a partnership that we're working with.
Yes, Commissioner Adams, unmute.
Yeah, I'd just like to second what Commissioner Lewis was just saying and what Commissioner Eldridge was saying earlier with these conversations about water. I mean, golf courses just take an extraordinary amount of water, as we've seen in our own golf course with the lack of TID. I agree with Commissioner Eldridge. I was really impressed by the RFP. I think it's well written. I think it's well weighted, and I would love to see water in particular and environmental concerns called out specifically as some of the criteria by which we make our decision. I think it's important from an environmental perspective and essential from a viable business perspective.
Yes, Commissioner Lewis.
Getting back to Patrick's business plan, he had a fairly well-rounded business plan as far as, I think the pickleball courts would have worked in perfectly in a plan, and also having activities up there. The wedding, he was just working on working with Ashland Hills and having outdoor weddings, and then you finish the wedding off at Ashland Hills, and there was so much potential right at the edge before the pandemic that I thought we might have a shot at actually running a golf course that isn't in the red so much. So I'm hopeful that this proposal can move forward.
Commissioner Eldridge.
Thanks. I just wanted to sort of reiterate that we, the commissioners, have heard from the community many voices from all throughout Ashland that a golf course is something that this community wants and cares about and is of value. And you know, I've stated before in the past that I don't play golf, but that doesn't mean that I don't appreciate that recreation is something that brings people joy, and that this golf course has been here since 1927. And I think the emails and all the voices that I've heard in this community has convinced me that this is something worth preserving. So I wanted to kind of start there. If anyone's thinking, why do we need a golf course? Which maybe was something that went through my head because it's not something that I do regularly. Over time, I started seeing this. There is a reason why this community needs a golf course, and I've heard that from from kids all the way up to seniors and of all socioeconomic levels. So I hope this gets some good proposals, and I'm excited to see a future for the golf course.
Well, we've had a lot of positive comment. So I'm going to kind of try to balance things out a bit by giving a little bit of constructive criticism as I see it. This kind of reminds me of a sign at in a print shop, and it said good quality, quick return, and cheap price. Pick any two. And I look at this, and this basically RFP kind of asks for everything. And hey, we're losing $200,000 a year on it now. And so we're asking someone to come in, we're telling them to not raise their prices, to just all these things that they're being constrained by. And yeah, but you also need to make it a viable business. So I think that it needs to be rewritten slightly. I don't know that anything needs to be particularly removed, but just make it clear that we want them to meet as many of these as they can, and that none of them are exclusionary. Because nobody is going to, in my opinion, no one is going to be able to say, yeah, we'll do all these things. Yes, Commissioner Adams. You're still on mute.
Sorry, yeah, I did not read the RFP that the person making the proposal would have to score 100 points in order to be able to win the contract. The RFP is a way for us to consider, as you pointed out, Commissioner Lant, competing priorities, right? That it might take more money to be able to run a successful golf course, and that may require some increase in fees, but we value the fees starting in the right place. I agree with you. When you put it all on paper in one document, you go, maybe it's fantastical to think that we could do all of this, but I think that's what an RFP is about, right? Is about balancing different priorities and weighting them. I'm not sure I agree that it needs to be edited in order to do that.
It does say the RFP at the very bottom does say APRC reserves the right to reject all proposals, to waive formalities, or to accept any proposal which appears to serve the best interest of APRC. I do think it's important to, I really, when Michael and I first started talking about this a few months ago, one of the words that we kept bringing up was accessible. I think accessibility for our community is really important. Everyone should have access to golf if they want to be able to golf. And I think, however, we choose to move forward with the proposer, with the contract, we can work through that with the proposer. But I think we do have to, I do want to make sure that we do leave some of those words in there in order to make sure that everybody has the accessibility to the golf course.
And I don't think it changes anything to say something about exclusivity and that we'll be looking at all proposals based on this criteria. And I mean, we can come up with something that is just a little note and maybe add to what Rachel read, because I would add to what you just read anyways, to say that in the best interest of APRC and the citizens of Ashland. And so I think we can add something to that without changing
it. Any other, and there was another thing. I still, that language about manicuring, I think that I mentioned that already, but I see it's not changed. So I'd like to see that change, because the way it's written, it means we're manicuring everything basically. And then that's not what the meaning is. So
Yeah.
it's a point, but I think, again, we don't want to, we're asking a lot of these folks. Let's not ask more than we really mean.
Right, and I think a couple of things along those lines, and we did talk about this, and what we can do is we can change that to, you know, appropriately manicured greens and maintained. All the other spaces are maintained at a level that's appropriate as well, but not technically manicured. So the other thing that I was thinking when we were going through this tonight was, when we're talking about trends and we should be talking about best practices as opposed to trends, and best practices for management, because best practices for management could include best practices for drought management, where you know, a trend might be, let's keep the golf course green at any cost, you know, and using not such sustainable methods to do that. So I think best practices is a little better term to use for that. And more, it's more applicable.
Any other comments from commissioners? So staff, do you have what you need to move forward? Because it sounds like the next step would be for the RFP to come before us at a future meeting, I believe the early February.
Yeah,
Commissioner,
we can do that. I took good notes here on the draft RFP, and I'll get this ready and bring it back at the February meeting.
yes, go ahead, Commissioner Eldridge.
Sorry, I have a quick clarifying question for my own benefit. The RFP says that Oaknell Golf Course sees approximately 25,000 visitors per year. And I wanted to just clarify, that number it's not the number of players, correct? The number of players per year is more along the 2,000, is that right?
No, well, so I tried to figure this out last year. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but we see anywhere about 16,000 rounds of golf, which is like, and then on top of that, we estimate, you know, how many people are like on top of that would be like the driving range, people using the driving range. We also try to calculate people just using the park, using it as a park, like with their dogs and things like that. So that's kind of where this number comes from.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
because
those aren't unique.
That number is different from, I asked for how many individuals are playing golf.
Unique
visitors. Number unique visitors, and you told me 1,800, of which about 1,000 were playing more than one round.
That's helpful. Thank you.
We're going to move on to the next order of business here.
Well, could I just solicit feedback from the public, anybody who's watching tonight who would like to download the RFP and provide feedback to staff, please feel free to email Rachel or myself or both of us, and we'd love to hear your feedback.
Okay. All right. Let's move along. Our next order of business is Senior Services Goals Progress Report. And I believe Superintendent Glott's going to take that forward. Please do.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. Let me pull up my PowerPoint and get that started. Can everybody see that? Good. Okay. Good. Thank you. And in order to see what I'm talking about, I'm going to have to minimize my view of the commissioners. Please say something if you have a question as we go, and I will certainly take questions at the end. I'm so pleased to have this opportunity. I last reported to the commission at the start of 2021. for the prior 2 years. This report is going to cover calendar years 2021 and 2022. I'd like to give a little background for the public and for our newer commissioners. In 2017 through 2018, there was a big process to redesign what was then a senior program under the rec division, and to redesign it to be a separate senior services division to better meet the needs of our growing senior population in Ashland. And the newly formed Ashland Senior Advisory Committee recommended this mission, and they recommended goals to guide the division's work. So our mission since 2018 has been to enhance the lives of seniors by promoting healthy aging, well-being, dignity, and independence. We empower older adults as valued contributing members of the community, and together advocate for the diverse needs of seniors and their families throughout Ashland. And so the goals were based on much community input and advisory committees during that restructuring process. And it was refined by and recommended by ASAC in November 2018 and adopted by the commission in 2019. And these goals continue to this day because most of it is about ongoing operations. But there were 7 goals. The last one is just combined on your screen, but to build partnerships with other organizations and with other city departments to reach vulnerable older adults and connect them to services. A goal to raise awareness of resources available for seniors. And we do that partly by raising awareness of the Senior Services Division and this Ashland Senior Center and what's available. That makes it as a starting point for people in our community. We also have a goal to advocate for senior needs throughout the community and to maintain and improve facilities, which continues to be one chunk of what we do because we have an older building as the senior center. So it's always needing some help. And then our 6th goal is to expand programs and expand programs at Ashland Senior Center and beyond. And the 7th goal is to expand services. Before I move on to go through the goals one by one and report on the progress in the last couple of years, I want to paint a picture of who we're serving. So one of the groups of people that we serve at Ashland Senior Services Division is older adults on a fixed income who need access to all available benefits the community has to make their ends meet. But we serve a wide range of ages, from newly retired or thinking about retiring all the way up to people in their 90s and even some in their hundreds. We serve seniors who are aging into special needs, and at that time, they and their families often have no idea where to look for help, and we help them start that process of what's available to help as needs change. We serve seniors new to the area seeking new friends and local resources, and we serve elders who have lived a lifetime in Ashland and sometimes now have no local family members or support system left here. We serve family caregivers, for instance, of people with dementia, and the caregivers are learning new coping skills. And we serve newly retired seniors seeking activities. So it's really a broad range of people. Gosh, I'm so sorry. I think I'm not having the version that I thought I had. Oh. Excuse me for just a sec. I'm going to stop share. I'm afraid I have the wrong version of this open. I'm being surprised by slides that I did not expect. Yes, it's our night to have staff issues with with PowerPoints. I apologize. Okay, I apologize. It's going to go much better with the slides that I prepared rather than an old version. So I apologize for the delay. Okay, I'm ready now. Yeah. All right. Okay, so now, yeah, let me see if I can speed through to make up for a little bit of lost time here. So starting with the goal of building partnerships, I'm happy to report that during 21 and 22, we maintained those relationships through pandemic transitions. The partnerships we had built in the prior 2 years were invaluable, in fact, for us helping our senior community during the pandemic and helping them connect to the organizations that weren't very available, and in many cases still aren't answering their phones or returning calls as well as they used to. We also really expanded collaboration with Jackson County Library System and the Ashland Emergency Food Bank and AARP Oregon. And there will be a little more of that as we go through the subsequent slides. I'll explain more. We have had already brought on sponsors for especially our big events. We have organizations like Village at Valley View that generously supply us with food for some of our big community events so that we can put on big events that don't charge seniors, but they get a meal or other great experience at no charge. In 21, especially in 2022, we were able to bring some sponsors in to just help fund some of our ongoing activities, like our weekly movie and our game groups, to allow us to continue to provide those at no charge, but offset some of our expenses for that. And in 2023, I'm happy to report that we have Rogue Valley Manor as our education sponsor, subsidizing some of our costs for education. For our goal of reaching frail and vulnerable seniors, obviously, so much of our efforts during the COVID pandemic were for the most vulnerable seniors in our community. As we progressed from 2020, the first pandemic year, into 2021, we gradually rolled back some of those programs that we were featuring during 2020 to 21. What the Adopt a Neighbor and our senior resource webpage for COVID-19. as we instead were beginning to bring back more and more of our more normal activities. We had started a phone buddy program just on the fly at the beginning of the pandemic, and that is now much more formalized as an ongoing program with trained volunteers, really seeking not just at the beginning of the pandemic, all seniors were isolated, but this program is more focused on some of the most vulnerable, more socially isolated seniors. And similarly, during the pandemic, we, with the help of volunteers and staff, we called just about every patron that we had a phone number for to check in and make sure they were getting their needs met. And that has now evolved to a new program of quarterly calling the most vulnerable, again, the most isolated and vulnerable, sometimes vulnerable because of few connections, sometimes vulnerable because of health issues, et cetera. And we have a wonderful volunteer who calls quarterly. We've also lately been working on collaborations for extreme heat and smoke, which are becoming more and more of an issue for our community. And I was able to do some research last summer and identify what the home cooling resources were for low-income seniors. So many seniors living in homes that don't have any cooling system because that was perhaps not frequently needed years ago. That is no longer the case. So we were able to connect some seniors with public programs that would help with cooling. Our goal of raising community awareness, we were doing so much press exposure in the years before COVID. We got a little quieter. Actually, we had a lot of exposure at the beginning of COVID because of some of our unique programs. But got a little quieter, especially in 21 and a little bit into 2022. I think we're coming out of that, but we have dramatically increased our senior news circulation. I think it was around 400 or 500 when I first started, and it's now almost 900. I'm happy to say a lot of that is via email these days, and that saves us money, but we still mail to about 350 homes. We've been doing some outreach presentations and some outreach events. We were tabling at Ollie, for instance, and I recently presented to Kiwanis. And just in the toward the end of 2022, we redid our website so that it's now part of the City of Ashland site, which will make it a little more accessible. And it's now much easier for staff for our own senior services staff to keep updated. And we've been getting a lot of compliments on how easy it is to use now. We also did a brand new brochure, and I think in your handout in your package, there was a direct link if you want to take a look at this more. And we generated some publicity toward the end of the year. We had some good publicity around our new outdoor activity space. This was funded by a grant from AARP, part of that partnership I talked about. And it's part of the AARP's work on age-friendly communities. And we made a case and got funded that we needed a better outdoor surface so that we could hold more activities outdoors for seniors, and especially have an option if our COVID cases make indoor activities prohibitive again, as they did for that first year and more of COVID. Then our goal of advocating for the needs of seniors, I want to credit our Ashland Senior Advisory Committee, because this is mostly them doing this advocacy. They've worked really hard on the age-friendly initiative by joining the network of, or convincing the City of Ashland and APRC to sign on a letter and join the network of age-friendly communities that AARP runs. And that has branched off into a separate alliance called the Livable Ashland Alliance that is working on issues of all age-friendly and livability for our community, with the hospital and the university and most of the heavy hitters in the community. So really proud of that work. ASAC members have chosen to advocate with the City Council regarding budget and senior needs and the importance of our parks as part of livability. And we have been advocating with RVTD to resume the Ashland Connector. Hopefully you're all familiar with that on-demand transit service. For the price of a bus ride, people could get curb to curb service. And that was an incredible game changer for seniors in our community. And we really need it back. It's really the best solution to the transportation issues that many seniors face. And RVTD is pretty much saying as soon as they can get more drivers, they'll bring that back. So we just want to keep advocating for that. In terms of our facilities, most of that work happens, of course, at Ashland Senior Center, which is an older building and has the commensurate issues that happen with older buildings. We're really proud to have replaced our hard flooring in 2021. So we got it done when we were really closed down for COVID. So that was great because you can imagine it was a lot of disruption. And so you see our before picture where we had this old style linoleum that was adjoining to vinyl, rolled vinyl that was peeling up and causing tripping hazards was the real reason that this needed to change. And so we got vinyl planking continuous throughout the hard floor area. So no more peeling seams. And it's had the side benefit of really updating the senior center. When you walk in there now, we repainted it a few years ago. You see the floor. It looks like a fresh and inviting place where you as a senior might want to come, not something that maybe your grandmother attended and hasn't improved since. That was done with a grant from Ashland Parks Foundation that was drawing from the Senior Center Fund. That is his historic grants or donations, I should say, to the Parks Foundation that had been saved and interest earned, and has allowed us to do these changes to keep the Senior Center going. Similarly, with that grant money, we replaced our heavy tables with smaller seminar tables that make it much easier for staff and more user-friendly for our education events, that everybody can have a table, various program supplies. You can see a picture of yoga supplies. That was actually a special donation that someone did in memory of Marion Moore, who was a very beloved yoga teacher there. Our new activity space, we've also increased our hand washing and hand sanitizer stations. And I'm really excited to report that as of December last month, we now have acoustic panels in our activity room. We installed them in our dining room in 2019, and it was just an amazing difference for seniors to be able to hear each other during social activities or our big events, or even just an education workshop with multiple people talking. We found that especially our folks with some hearing loss, which is a lot of people in our age demographic, it makes a really big difference. So really excited to have that. Our programs, of course, initially in 2021, we were continuing our various pandemic programs that we had going. We also had some fun new programs in 2021. A group of Ollie folks, I think they were Ollie improv players, they put together an amazing and so funny performance over Zoom, like an old-fashioned radio play. And boy, it was a lot of fun and brought a bright spot during a time when nothing was really open in person in early 2021. We also did a lot on vaccine access for seniors when those became available at the beginning of 2021. They were sort of available. They weren't very available. It was really hard for seniors to get access to those, especially in Ashland. So that was a huge program for us for, gosh, about 4 to 6 months. And then we restarted some of our programs that had been inside. We restarted outside and online. And I'll just show you a few little pictures of some of our outdoor classes or discussion group, and we did some of our events as drive-throughs. And there's just some glimpses of what online programs look like. We were glad to be able to have something. In 2022, we've been resuming in-person programs. We really reopened the beginning of the year and brought the last of our programs back in March. And we've had a lot of education, starting with some outdoor education, but also then bringing education inside. Our Food and Friends, our partner that's run by RV Cog, resumed in-person dining in about the same time that we were reopening last March. Started small, but as you can see, it's grown a bit. It's not as big as it used to be, but it'll get there. Not all seniors are ready to be back inside. So it's still important that we have some outdoor activities, and we continue to do a lot of service for people over the phone. But we were able to resume our social and cultural events, some of our collaborations, like with the Brit Festival, this outdoor concert at the Senior Center. We brought back our outdoor ice cream social, and then we bravely brought back our indoor events, the firefighters Thanksgiving and the holiday party. And I'm happy to report that we're not hearing that they were super spreader events. Made me a little nervous. We've expanded in the last couple of years our digital education, and we continue to have some great computer tutors one-on-one, but we now have a collaboration with Jackson County Library Systems where they teach a monthly tech basics class on different topics for seniors. And that's been really helpful. They combine a curriculum with a lot of one-on-one attention. And we have a new senior walking group that's been a big hit. It now fills every session filled, and it combines an outdoor activity for some seniors, especially who don't want to go indoors, with socializing and physical activity, and features our parks. It rotates among our different parks and the neighborhoods around the parks. So that's been a huge success. And then we have our Senior Celebrating Creativity is our senior art exhibit. We had started this in 2019 and of course had to shut it down for COVID, but I'm really excited that our first exhibit is actually getting installed this Friday and will be up for a few months. And it's going to be in our dining room this time. I encourage you to stop by. This is actually a photo from one of the last ones that was up. So different artists this time. And so services, I think that has really been our biggest area during COVID, that when we couldn't put on activities, we really refocused on various services that would help seniors in our community. And I think we did that quite robustly and won many new fans in the process, who now are learning that we also have activities and social activities that they can engage in. In our service arena, I'm very proud that we've brought online a new client database. It was actually designed by our IT department. And instead of an expensive third-party database that we have to pay for every month, we were really lucky to get someone in IT just adapted a version that he already had that's super simple. We've leaned very heavily on volunteers in the last year since we lost our office assistant position. And this is a database that our volunteers could basically learn in a day. It's so streamlined for our needs, and it's really changing how we can serve our clients, because all of us can see the same ongoing record rather than notes in one person's file cabinet. We have a new Mike Hirsch Memorial Food Pantry. We've always had some supplies from the Ashland Emergency Food Bank for seniors, but right before he passed away, Mike had suggested that we expand that to more of a pantry. And we brought that project online in his memory, and it's been just a great boon for seniors. It's a self-service food pantry. It's really designed for our own patrons. Was there a question there? Okay. We've been giving away a lot of COVID-19 test kits and masks. I kind of have my channels into different directions, like the health department, and we get things for free and we pass them out. It really helps because Ashland is way at this end of the county, and a lot of the other resources that are more available in Medford aren't as available in Ashland. And so we can become that location where people can get those resources. Another exciting program this year is Advanced Directives Assistance. This is actually one of our advisory committee members. We realized that she had great skill in helping people with advanced directives. This is her particular passion about end-of-life planning. And now she is in our office twice a month, helping people, assisting people to do this important work and maybe get over some of the humps or barriers that have been stopping them from getting their wishes in place so that their end of life can be as they wish it to be. And we, with the help of a volunteer, we really reinvigorated our free library. We now have books, DVDs, magazines, and jigsaw puzzles that are all available on the free library concept of take what you want, make a donation back if you want. And the exciting added addition is we now have a large collection of large print books that were donated. We thought to put a notice in our newsletter asking for donations, and we found a couple of our patrons that had a big supply of them that they've shared with us. So that's been great to be a center for that. So I'm just going to end here with a long view of our service statistics. The yellow line is our services. The red-orange line is our activities like fitness, yoga and Tai Chi and recreation and education and events. And the green is the total. And what you can see is that we're on a nice climb from when I started in 2018, August 2018. We were building our number of visits and contacts and services. There was no surprise there, a big dip in March of 2020 with COVID, and you can see us slowly beginning to come back and figure out what we could deliver. You can see the red line went from 0 to some when we got our online and outdoor activities going. And then you see another big spike when we were doing so much on vaccines and vaccination clinics for people. And then you see a nice slow climb back to our prior activity levels. And I think we're going to shoot way over the top in 2023 because we're already adding back a lot more activities. So with that, I'm going to stop share and see if anybody has questions.
Yes, Commissioner Adams.
Hi, thanks so much for your presentation. As the new guy in the room, and by the way, for the rest of you, I plan to continue to use that for at least another 11 months. Can you tell me a little bit about how you mentioned some of the collaborative organizations, how you collaborate with other organizations and avoid duplicating services when possible?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that is exactly our goal. Part of it is forming the relationships to know what other people are doing and to educate them on what we're doing so that we can begin to cross-refer and not just repeat. There's obviously in the realm of senior opportunities, seniors participate in all kinds of adult opportunities. And so it's not that we as Ashland Senior Services need to be all opportunities for all seniors. So one of our partners is the YMCA. A lot of what we're doing with our classes are providing that Tai Chi or line dance or yoga at a very low cost for the people who aren't a member of the Y, or in some cases are members of the Y, but find our classes are more adapted because our classes are all very much focused on seniors rather than a larger adult audience. So that would be one example. We collaborate a lot with OLLI. One of the things we do is help our patrons know that OLLI A exists and B offers scholarships, because I don't want to characterize everybody who uses Ashland Senior Center as low income, but I'd say we're a little heavier represented on a lower income distribution than Ollie, that is perhaps a little heavier represented in people who are educated professionals. But they overlap, absolutely. And some people do activities at both. But we provide free education opportunities. Sometimes our partnerships with Ollie let us tap into presenters who might have already presented at Ollie and now will come do a free presentation for us. So those are just a couple out of 50 partnerships that we have. We partner with Ashland Emergency Food Bank. We refer people to them to get a home delivered food box, which has been incredibly beneficial for seniors, that the food bank's been able to go more into the home delivery realm. But at the same time, we have some extra food at the senior center. So the people who are at the senior center can easily supplement. They might be coming to the senior center for the lunches, and then maybe can take a box of cereal home or a can of soup to handle some of their other meals. So those are how we piece it together. And we work very much with many other partners in the realm of direct senior services, and we're often referring to them and they to us. So did that answer without spending another hour?
That was great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Other questions for? Yes, Commissioner Eldridge.
Thanks so much, Eileen. I really appreciate all the work that you're doing, and it's so cool to see that the services and activities are increasing so steadily and that you're getting on your feet again as a division. It's awesome. I just wanted to kind of point out that you mentioned you expect these activities and services to even increase beyond the baseline of what they were pre-COVID, and you're short a staff person already sort of operating on bare bones. So just to sort of state the obvious that this division needs more support, as many of the parts of Ashland Parks and Recreation. And it's, it needs to continue to be a priority for commissioners to get the funding and support that our community needs, particularly the vulnerable and aging members of our community. So I really appreciate all your work, and I hope that in the future we can ensure that you're supported more fully.
I suppose I should have named that part of how we've managed the transition to a third less staff is we are now open only Monday through Thursday. But we did that by moving things, a couple things that already asked to move of our Friday activities, and then we moved our last one. Our movie is on Tuesdays now instead of Fridays, and that has allowed us to basically not change our numbers much, but cope. I would say is what we're doing on Fridays when the front door and the phones aren't being answered. We're instead doing the behind the scenes that it takes to provide all these programs.
I'll get to you, Commissioner Lewis, but I just have to point out that this is the kind of way that top tier staff work, which is you don't always have everything you need to do the job, but you can improvise, you can be creative, you can figure it out. And yes, you should be commended for working for basically doing the same work at this point that with less people by using those traits. So thank you. Yeah, Commissioner Lewis.
Yeah, and I'd also like to thank you, Eileen. Years ago, when the commission decided to restructure the senior service division, we've taken it from a pretty modest organization, and with your partnership building and the sponsorship, and I think this comprehensive flexible plan that we've just seen here, and I can't tell you how thrilled I am to see it blossom into a real senior service division. And I must say, when I first moved to Ashland, I was in my 30s and retirement wasn't on the horizon. And I'm 73 now. So, hey, I'm moving right along with your plan. So, hey, thank you and all your staff, and may may this COVID get over with. And I noticed the graph is pretty much a COVID graph, actually. It models COVID pretty exactly. And so I see the upswing on the graph. And so I see nothing but more ability to take care of more people. Thank you.
Okay, I don't, unless there's something, final comment here, we're gonna move on. Thank you, Ivan. So next order of business is items from commissioners. So any items from commissioners? Well, seeing none, I guess I'll venture to say if there are any items from staff that we haven't heard yet. Get a no there. So guess what? It is 7:11 and we've gotten through the agenda. I want to thank staff and commissioners for participating tonight. We have another meeting scheduled for next Wednesday, and that will be in person at City Council chambers, and looking forward to seeing you all there. So with that, the meeting's adjourned. Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.